Okay, back to business practices. 6.4 says inform appropriate parties in a timely manner when delayed or unable to fulfill assignments. Stuff's gonna happen. Traffic's gonna happen. If you live in the city of Houston, or if you're new to Houston, let me warn you, traffic happens. It is bad. We are such a huge landmass, more so than, you know, other big cities. Usually in other big cities like New York or other places, it's a very localized traffic problem. And the city, you know, to get from point A to point B, it may take you a long time, but if you were to look at a map, it's really not that far out. Houston, not only do we have bad traffic localized in downtown Houston, but we are just spread out. You know, the Houston metro area includes anything from just about Galveston up to Huntsville, not quite, but I mean just about, I'm exaggerating a bit, but not much, out to, you know, Katy and Sugar Land, and I mean just all over the place. We're huge. And any of that is fair, I guess, game as far as travel concerns is concerned, where agencies can send you. And so you need to leave early, very, very early. I go and interpret VRS, and even though it's, you know, it's kind of far away, and even though usually I'm going against traffic, I still allot myself a lot of time to get there on time, because I want to make sure that I'm fulfilling the commitments that I've made. And I bring a book with me, or I do other things just to fill in that time if I think that I'm going to get there early. You know, but it's probably better to be there early than to be there late. In fact, not probably, it is better. So just be aware of that. And I know I'm preaching to the choir. I know you guys probably know that already, but I just can't stress that enough. Because one of the highest complaints, again, going back to the professionalism and confidentiality parts of the Code of Professional Conduct, aside from breaches of confidentiality, the second most, I don't know, the biggest complaint, I suppose, of deaf people is interpreters being late. If your interpreter's late and the teacher's already told you what's going to be on the test, what are you supposed to do? You know, I just can't stress enough how important it is for you to be on time. And if you know you're not going to be on time, to at least let all the parties involved know that you're delayed. And try to make that a rare occurrence as much as possible, okay? But stuff does happen, and so if you know the night before that you're sick and you're just not going to make it, try to call your coordinator ahead of time to let them know so they can already start looking for somebody to replace you. Okay? 6.5, reserve the option to decline or discontinue assignments if working conditions are not safe, healthy, or conducive to interpreting. So, if people are working you too hard, you really probably shouldn't be working over an hour and a half, sometimes an hour. It depends on how strenuous the interpreting assignment is by yourself. And that's honestly not just for carpal tunnel syndrome reasons. That's also for your mental capacities. You just aren't interpreting effectively after a certain point. And so that's if you're continually interpreting. If you're doing something where the participants have a lot of downtime, where they're just kind of doing a lot of written work, well, then I could probably interpret 4 hours by myself and be fine. You know, it just depends. So you kind of have to take everything on an individual basis, but be thinking about that whenever you're accepting assignments. Try to make sure that you're keeping yourself and everybody around you safe and doing the best you can to make sure service delivery is effective. 6.6, this is one of these duh ones, but refrain from harassment or coercion before, during, or after the provision of interpreting services. Really? Really? I would say that's probably a good behavior for life, not just as interpreting, but I try to refrain from harassment and coercion in general. But, you know, especially during interpreting assignments or before or after, apparently that's important as well. Some people need you to really spell it out for them. So, 6.7. Oh, this is a soapbox of mine too. Render pro bono services in a fair and reasonable manner. I render pro bono services like nobody's business. I give back to the deaf community constantly because you know what? They gave me the ability to make a living. And so I'm constantly giving back, giving back, giving back. Heck, sometimes agencies call me actually a lot, and I don't ever invoice them just because I just have fun interpreting. I really, really love what I do. I don't just say that, like, I really, really love interpreting. It's so much fun. And anyway, however, I do believe that there's a line, and I think that there are times when people will just try to skirt the issue of paying interpreters because they think they can, you know? Oh, it's so sweet that you interpret for those deaf people. Yes, it is sweet, but I also get paid a pretty penny to do it, you know? I mean, we should be paid for the services that we render, and so make sure people don't take advantage of you. I will say that there is an organization, again, soapbox, right, called Family Life, not Focus on the Family. It's called Family Life, and I have dealt with this organization multiple times where they've come to Houston wanting to present on marriage, and they will refuse to pay for interpreters, and it just drives me crazy. Drives me crazy. Can't stand Christian people. Okay, I am a Christian, I can say that. Can't stand Christian people sometimes. Because, I don't know. I had an entire conversation with this one gentleman multiple times, and I could not get through to him. You know, I asked him, well, is there even something that you can do to compensate the interpreters just to show them that you appreciate their services, such as a ticket for one of their other seminars or workshops? And he said, well, we do compensate the interpreters. And I was like, and how do you do that? And he said, well, we don't charge them to interpret at the conference. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You know, and I told him, I was like, do you charge your speakers to come? Do you charge the people who set up your stage? Do you charge all of these people? Well, no. Then why in the world would you charge the interpreters to come into your conference? Well, because they're hearing the message. Are you kidding me? I mean, really, thank the Lord that my college does not charge me to go and teach there. Are you kidding me? It just, I cannot express to you guys how angry this made me. I mean, I'm sure you can kind of see that, but woo! You know, and especially in a Christian context, I told them, you know, if you really believe what you say you believe, first of all, people don't go to marriage conferences because they're doing well, usually. Most of the time, people go there because they really need help. And I knew the particular deaf couple that wanted to go to this marriage conference in the first place. It was a deaf and a hearing person, actually, and which is probably half the problem right there, but not much communication because the hearing person didn't know much sign language. Not even going to go there. But anyway, the point is, they needed help. They needed help in their marriage. And so I understand why they wanted to go to this conference. They were paying their admittance fee. And so I asked the person, you know, if you really believe what you say you believe, you would want to provide the highest quality services for this couple that you could. And what you're telling them by not providing quality interpreters, because they were just going to get some signers, some people who had learned some sign language out of a book. Are you kidding me? If you're not providing quality interpreters for these people, you're saying one of two things. You're either saying your message is not important enough to hear, or they're not important enough to hear your message. Which one is it? You know, and of course they didn't have an answer for that. It just enraged me. So anyway, I'll get off my high horse there. But it is important to provide pro bono services, but make sure that it's in a fair and justifiable manner. Okay? And we will continue on. The last one here is charge fair and reasonable fees for the performance of interpreting services and arrange for payment in a professional and judicious manner. So just make sure that you're asking for money in a fair way, that if you get a higher level of certification, that any of your prior commitments that you've made, that you still charge the lower fee, because they didn't know you were going to be getting a higher level of certification. Make sure that you start charging more at a later date, I guess, and that all of the agencies are aware of the fact that your rates are about to increase. You don't just do it on a whim. You make sure that, first of all, you have a reason for doing it, and secondly, that they know in advance that that's going to be happening. And anything that you've already committed to, you commit to doing it to the wage that you had agreed upon originally. So anyway, I guess that's it. We are going to move on to the last tenet, which is professional development.